Hello all, just out for a wee walk around the back of Whitfield. It's the lovely golf courses there, just at Dundee, and I'm going away to walk up towards, not going to go up the Tarzan Island, but going to walk along some of the countryside just on the outskirts of Whitfield, not far from Tarzan Island, a place called Tarzan Island. But it's just a brief video, a brief walk, but I'm going to have a look at some of the stuff that I found really bizarre in this area about 4 years ago, back in 2020. I made a video about it then, and I was actually looking back old videos, and I kind of remember doing that, and it put me in the mood just to come back here again. I've been here since, but I'm going to just see what it's like now regarding the stuff that I found quite strange. So it's a lovely sunny, well, not really sunny, but it's a lovely Sunday afternoon. It just rhymes better when I say nice lovely sunny Sunday afternoon. So that's just to show you the Blummy golf course, just a quick sort of look at it. The hill in the background is Craigival with the masts on it. It's part of the Sidlow Hill range. So I'm going to have a walk up this trail here. It's a lovely walk, it goes into the countryside. That's just some more views from the Blumby golf course. So it's quite it's stuff that I found quite bizarre. There's a lot of things that I find quite strange actually. I could give you a list as long as the blooming golf course, but just to name a few. It's the way the trees sort of merge into the fences. There's fence posts that are really quite bizarre, as I'll show you later. Right now I'm faced with this obstacle to get over, so I'm going to have to find a way to get around it, which I will do. So I'm just kind of like chilling out on a Sunday afternoon, sunny summer Sunday afternoon. I used to do this a lot in the 90s, early 90s, back in particularly 1991. It's a year I always remember most. Now I've got past this obstacle, I've got to find a way to get down because it's a bit brilliant. So I might as well record the moment when I fall on my arse probably as I do this. Record. Oh, it comes to a wee sort of dike that I had to go down. But anyway, yeah, I used to do Whitfield a lot. I mean, I've stayed in this hill, which is at the other end of Dundee. I used to come here on a sunny, well, on Sunday afternoons because I was still at the school back then. So yeah, I was still at the school back then. I was, well, it'd be 16. I was actually just going on 16. So it was summer, spring, actually the later part of 1990. There's a lot of scarring blocks around Whitfield that were derelict, and they were just empty. And I was fascinated with them because I used to stay at Cheviot Crescent since I was born until I was 5, up until 1980, and I remember the scarring blocks back then. And when we moved from Cheviot in 1980 to Meanis Hill, where I'm currently at, the scarring blocks was something that always stuck in my memory. I found that the blocks are fascinating, and I used to come here on a Sunday back in 1981 just to, explore around the old buildings. Now here's an example, just as in passing, of the trees that I find bizarre. Now I find it really odd because it's not a phenomenon that I seen before until recently. Well, certainly within the last few years. It's all merged in, and I find that really odd. There's lots of trees like that around the country, in fact, that I've spotted. But the first time I came across the phenomena with the trees merging into the fences like that was here back in 2020. I was doing a similar thing. Probably by this time, it was summer 2020. That was a very peculiar year, 2020. as you will probably may know. But that's when I first came across that phenomenon, because prior to that I never saw anything like it. Now, the very video that I took back then, I was looking back at earlier on today, just for reminiscing, just have a look around old files, and I wanted to see what it's like today, that very video that I took of the tree that's merged into the fence. So it's just down here, it was this fence. The building behind me, it actually reminds me of the Prisoner Cell Block H, the Australian TV show Prisoner Cell Block H. I'm a massive fan of Prisoner Cell Block H. I have a complete box set, all 692 episodes. I've watched the series about 6 times over. I know I'm mad, I watched it originally when it was shown in Grampian. Now it gets very interesting, very strange here, because I've got a story about that as well that I'll mention. I've got many things to mention. But in a nutshell, I remember it when I stayed at Cheviot. I was very young, because obviously since I was born I was 5. I remember just the music was familiar. As soon as I saw it again in the late 80s, I said to myself, I remembered to myself that that's familiar. It makes me think of Whitfield housing scheme, and the way the blocks were very square and all the rest of it. And the block there, that's what just comes to mind every time that I've seen that. I never went to Braveview Academy. It used to be Whitfield High School. It's now called Braveview Academy. Well, it's been called Braveview Academy for the last 24 years or something, maybe even lower, 28 years or something like that. But originally it was built and called Whitfield High School. And the block, when I see that, when I'm having a walk around this area, which isn't very often, but certainly in the 90s and the 80s, when I used to walk Tarzan Island and explore around the old derelict buildings, and I seen the block, the Prisoner Cell Block H comes to mind. Now, there's an interesting thing. I remember it was familiar to me back in the early 80s. However, when I checked with a lot of the studios in the UK, I wasn't shown in the UK until the mid to late 80s. In Grampian, where I watched it from, which is the TV station that I get, didn't show it until 1988 or something, which means the last episode would have been, which I remember, was 1996. Now, the strange thing was, yesterday I was watching an interview with the character that played Marty Jackson, Michael Winchester. It's on the YouTube, and there was an interview. Great, it was brilliant. I liked his acting. I like watching him. It's brilliant. I like Michael Winchester's, who played Marty. He played it very well. But he said in the interview that shortly after the show ended and he left, which would have been 1986, he says that a lot of letters he received a lot of letters, particularly from the UK. Now that's kind of like strange, because apparently it wasn't shown in the UK until the late, 80s. Some was maybe as early as 1984. But the last episode, because he was only in it in the last 58 episodes or something. 58, 59 episodes, which was the season 8, and that wouldn't have been shown in Australia until 1986. And I always thought, and still believe, that it was shown here concurrently with the Australian show. So in other words, it was shown at the same time, more or less, just like that with Neighbours and Home and Away, that I don't really watch much of. But we're talking the Neighbours. I did go to the Neighbours when I went to Melbourne in 2014. I went on the Neighbours tour just so I could see the block where Prisoner Cell Block H was filmed in. It looks like that. Guys, I wasn't really into Neighbours, but I had to go on the tour to get to see the block, because that's where Neighbours was filmed, in that studios, Network 10 Studios in Nunawading, the place in Melbourne, Australia. So I've got loads of pictures of that. But the thing was, though, like I was saying earlier, the episode wouldn't have been shown. The last episode wouldn't have been shown in the UK until the mid to late 90s. So, yet the Michael Winchester, who played Marty Jackson, got letters that he says in his interview. He got letters, particularly from the UK, shortly after he'd left the show. Because he left the show, he stayed to the very end, and when the show finished in 1986, he would obviously leave the show as well, because it ended. He was only in the last 58 episodes. He was in the last series when he came in. So nobody would have known who Marty Jackson was, unless in the UK, unless they saw it. Which goes in line with my thinking, because I always remembered it being, I don't remember specific details, but the familiarity with it is definitely resembles what the music and the shape just makes me think of the early 80s and Cheviot, when I stayed in Cheviot, late 70s, and I always had this hunch that it was shown in the UK. I mean, why wouldn't it? Yet apparently it wasn't shown in the UK until many years after it, after it had been shown in Australia. And then Grampian, they say, where I could have only seen it, would have been shown in the late 80s, 88 or something. And the last one was 1996. So that's bizarre anyway, but that's just one bizarre story that I'm not going to go into too much about. But anyway, I'm going to show you this tree. But this is just a wee look at the block. That's the Breview Academy. Now, it was one of these two. I've got the video anyway. It's merged in. The fence goes right in. I think it was this one actually. And it's obviously still all merged in. Right, the fence has grown through it, or the tree's grown right through the fence. It was kind of very bizarre, but that's the first time I'd ever saw anything like that, was here. It was that one, and I logged it in. I made about a 17-second long video right early on in my channel, in my YouTube channel. So yeah, that's the first one I saw. I've seen many since then. I mean, that was 4 years ago, more or less exactly 4 years ago, which was not long after I'd started doing YouTube. Prior to that, I just took videos from my own records. I still do, obviously, but I do YouTube as well. Some of them are suitable to share. But, well, in here I can show you, it's quite a nice area to have a wander around. It's quite a nice bit of the countryside. And you could probably understand why I like to come here on a Sunday. It was a thrill and adventure to me because I was a lot younger back then, and I was exploring old derelict buildings that I was fascinated in. So you could probably understand that. It's a nice bit of the country, it's right on the edge of the city. And as I say, I was a lot younger. Although I was big for my age, my dad would say it was okay, just be careful sort of thing, because a lot of the times I used to do these adventures on my own. And I'd looked a lot older for my age anyway. That was a problem when you were bigger for your age and you looked older. People used to ask us, could you go and get fags and could you get his drink out of the shop and everything, and I had problems getting on the bus because they'd never believe I was a child. I had to get a bus pass to prove I was an adult, and when I started at Middlesbrough High School, a good mate of mine who I'm still mates with now, he's massive, he's about 6'5", and he thought I was in 6th year when I started in 1st year. You know who I am. But that was the thing though. But he used to let me come here, my dad used to let me come here on my own. This is, bear in mind I was only, as I say, 15 going on 16, because, well, 1991 I was 16 in July, so I started exploring around here actually in the late 90s, the autumn 1990, so I was really only, I'd have been 15 and a half. Although saying that, there was one time I walked through my auntie's in Dundee to Whitfield, and I was only about 14 and a half, 13, 14. Which was, it felt like a big adventure, because remember, I was quite young and travelling all that distance to a scheme that, like this. Whitfield was known to be quite a rough scheme. But I was fascinated in the architecture, and as I say, I used to stay in Cheviot Crescent, which is in the edge of Fintry, which is right next door to Whitfield. And my mum used to take us she knew people in Whitfield. My dad, if he was out working, he had a car, and obviously he was working all day, and then my mum would go and take us, see people in Whitfield, and I used to walk from Cheviot into Whitfield, and we used to get the bus as well. And I remember old buses, which is another story. I'm not going to get into that one, but I remember a Pacific fleet of buses that had dark brown seats, and they looked like the Alexander RV type bodywork, and they sounded totally different to what they are supposedly always meant to have sounded. In other words, they sounded like Mark 1s, which is what I clearly remember them sounding as, and they were at a date where they weren't meant to have existed. They weren't meant to have came new until 1981, but yet I remember them clearly in 1970s, the late 1970s. Now those of you that know me know that story very well, because I came across that phenomenon back in 1987 when I was 12, and I've never forgot it, and that's what kind of got me into buses. But and kind of, there's a lot of things I could reminisce. In case you wonder what that is, that's a fly. It's flying a bit on my screen. Now, the fence posts. This is something that I find bizarre. So, this is the area. It's quite grown. It's obviously overgrowth quite a bit. Now, it's the fence boundary with the high school. It's where this track as well was quite bizarre also. But the fence posts, what I don't quite understand is when you look at the height of them, right, and you could see. Now, when I first came across this about 4 years ago, there wasn't the overgrowth was there, but not quite so much. But you could see just how low the fence posts are. Now, it doesn't make sense to have a fence that low. Now, I logged this in at the time when I came across it. It's just absolutely amazing how it's as low as that. Why would they have a fence posts right down? That should be about, you know, at least 6 foot tall. That fence is one of the chain link fences, and it should be 6 foot at least. But yeah, it could just, you can stand over it, you can step over that, no bother. Look how low down they are. It's not like the posts have sunk down or anything. There's no way it would sink down like that. The ground hasn't changed. The land's not changed. You know, there's nothing being put here to fill in to make them sinking down like that. That's not the case. They're just bizarrely, for some weird, strange reason, why they're as low as that, it just beats me. I mean, you know, why would they wouldn't make the fence like that. The ground hasn't gone down. I mean, that's the pillar, that's one of the main pillar fences. The main pillars to the fence. And even that's about, you know, you can see just how low it is in the ground. It's just crazy why it's as low as that. It's bizarre, you know. And they've got this remnant of fence here, which was, what's that doing there? That's really odd. And look how it's sort of just kind of going into the ground like that. I mean, the height of them. Why would they have a fence? They certainly wouldn't build it like that. That's not how it was originally built. There's no way that they would build a fence like that. The ground hasn't changed its land orientation to cause it to sink like that. Neither. There's no any evidence of it to my findings. I wouldn't imagine it being like that anyway. So I'm logging that in. So I just don't get that at all. It's just absolutely, you know, it doesn't make sense. And as I say, you could stand over that fence, so what would be the point of having it that low? And the other bizarre thing regarding this very path that I'm walking on, this path and trail, as far as I'm concerned, never used to exist. It never used to be here. It never used to be here. In my memory, I've never remembered it being here. Yeah, so I've said that because, like I said earlier, I used to come here a lot in the summers and Sundays during 1990, 1991. In fact, I used to do it for quite a few years. I used to bring my mates with us sometimes when they wanted to come along. They would come along as well, and we'd go exploring together around about Whitfield, around about the old buildings. We'd go to the Chinese takeaway or the chip bar to get something to eat later on in the evening. We'd go to the shops, get stuff to eat and have a wander around. And I know the area from then, and if I'd known about this path, I was sure I would have remembered it. When I discovered it in 2020, 4 years ago, I would have known about this if this path had been here. It's not like it's been put here recently. It's like it's been here all the time, you know. And I would have clocked that. I couldn't have missed it. So I find that really bizarre as well. But like I say, we used to explore here. I used to do it for many years, even after that. My mates only came now and again, occasionally in the early, like 91, 92 and that, maybe 93, but I was fascinated in it. I was really interested in this area, so I kept coming back here for many years after that, right up until the 2000s. I mean, I still do come here. Even went back here a lot in 2006, although it was different. We had to work with the shifts around it, like, but it never left me. I was fascinated in it deeply, and I still am. My mates were interested, but they're kind of like, you know, they came here occasionally with us, but like I say, most of the time I came here on my own because when I get fascinated in something, I tend to get really fascinated in it, and I don't let go because I really want to remember and stay with it and remember it and learn as much as I can from it. Like that with the buses. Ever since I discovered these buses in 1987 when I was 12, to this day, in 48, coming up for 49, so that's what, 37 years, isn't it? 36, 37 years, and I've still not forgot that day, and I'm still interested and still trying to find out about it. So that path I would have definitely known because I'd wandered around the countrysides in these days. I wasn't from here back in the 90s, it was from Minnesota. I used to get the bus from Minnesota here at 17. I used to go around in the buses back then. A lot of drivers remember that. And as I say, I was young and it was an exploration for me. I was fascinated, and I would remember, I'd pick up on all the things like trails and paths. I would remember that, and I would have saw fences if they were like that back then. I used to, and it was obviously before that, when I was a kid, most of them do. They'd climb trees and stuff like that, climb up buildings, which I did. I was a lot fitter back then. And I would have remembered if trees grew into fences like such. I never ever saw that before until 2020, 4 years ago. That's when I first came across that. And since then I've seen many cases of that around and up and down the country. Many. And it's not a thing that used to ever happen. It's very bizarre. You might just see the Whitfield scarring block. It's been done up since then. It used to be square, but since the 80s and 90s they started putting roofs on them and refacing them. You can also see Tarzan Island there as well, with the piling on it. It's not so clear. I mean, I don't know if I've got time to go just now, but that is just see the tops of the buildings for the scarring blocks. Maybe not very clear, but I've done a video on it anyway. And the countryside on it, oops, I'll try and get that better. And the countryside on the sunny, just on a summer's day, like this, it's really quite appealing to me, especially when I was adventuring around here in the 90s, because I wasn't driving back then. I was too young, I didn't have the money for it anyway, so I bussed everywhere, and getting here was good to chill out. So if I'd known about that path, I would have used it back then. I was not aware of it because I wasn't there. I wandered around, I was looking for other places to explore. 3:30. I don't know if I'll have time to go up it. I'm kind of like tempted to go up Tarzan Island just to show you. It's kind of pressed for time because we've got to pick someone up at 4 o'clock and I tend to get late. And usually late. But like I say, I would have known about that. I mean, everybody, now this is the thing, people will obviously remember that being there and they'll think and just misremember and all the rest of it. They've got the reasons to think that, which is understandable. Now, while and on the subject, there is a phenomena online. Now, if you know that, you probably know what I'm going to say next if you've watched my videos before. But the phenomena is called the Mandela effect phenomena. Now, oh gosh, every time I say it, I've got to mention it. If you're interested in the Mandela effect phenomena, do your own searching, researching, etc., etc., and come to your own conclusions about it. And do that if you're interested in the Mandela effect phenomena. Now, you can go online and type it in, and you'll find hundreds of examples of Mandela effects. You'll get theories on what it's about, what causes it. That's what they are, theories. Personally, I don't know what's causing it. I'm interested. What you got online is one thing, including my video, including anything. It's one thing, it's digital, it's artificial, so you make what you will of it. But I could assure you I don't need to, it's up to you what you remember, but I could be sure what I remember, and I know what I remember, and I know what I remembered, how things were. That I can assure you of. Don't know what's causing it, but there's a theory called the Mandela effect. It's an interesting one. Like I say, if you go online, type it in, you'll get tons of stuff online about it. But in a nutshell, a rather big nutshell, it's basically, they say that it's the consciousness, which is what we are, consciousness. So if our consciousness is shifting from one dimension to another, or a different reality to another reality, then what was once in the reality that you may remember may be different to the one that you've shifted in, but subtle differences. Like, for example, the path was never there before in my reality. It's not been put there recently, yet it's always been there by the looks of it. Now, there's many examples of that. I could give you a list, ones I could agree with, and ones that I wouldn't go either way, and ones that I've came across personally myself, and I have came across a lot personally. That's why I'm interested in the phenomena that's named and referred to as the Mandela effect phenomenon online. It's widely recognised, well, yeah, I would say it's recognised quite a lot, considering the X-Files TV show, sci-fi TV show, the later one, in the, about 2019 or 2019, I've run out of time. The episodes in 2019 basically has referred to the Mandela effect in one of their episodes. So it's obviously recognised. I'm running out of time. It's just like getting on a bit. I've got to kind of get back. I've got to drive back to pick someone up. It sounds like there's people up there on the Tarzan Island. I'm not going to go there just now. I wasn't going to plan on it anyway. But there's a nice view of the countryside. Whitfield housing scheme. Whitfield was made up of a lot of scarring blocks, particularly the back of Whitfield. And the blocks are rectangular. They didn't have the roofs on them like they do there. They were refaced, but they do look similar. There is a resemblance. The long corridors are still there. The main structure of the building's the same. It's just been kind of refaced. There's a lot of new private houses that have been built, obviously, since then. You know, they weren't there originally, but Whitfield's changed a lot. So I've done videos on Whitfield. I've done a few actually, quite a few. I've done quite a few videos on Whitfield on my channel. I don't really want to go into all them, but if you look back, type in Whitfield, I've got quite a lot. So if you want to see them, just have a wee look on my channel. So this is just more of a Sunday stroll kind of thing, and just going through some stuff that I found bizarre. It's still bizarre. Just wanted to check back in there. As I say, I've done videos up there anyway, at Tarzan Island. I've done a particular video on my channel regarding it. So I'm just kind of heading back to the car now. So it's Brayview Academy there, what was formerly called Whitfield High School. Now, as I say, this path and trail I would have known if it were around back then, which it weren't. It's only recently I came across that. So, just to say, the phenomenon, the Mandela effect phenomenon, is one that I could certainly relate to because I've experienced many. This may be another one, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what's causing it. As a lot of people, and it's very easy for people just to say it's mismemory and all the rest of it. But it's like I said earlier on about that episode of Prisoner. The guy that was, you know, the actor that played Marty Jackson. He even said that he got letters from fans, particularly in the UK, shortly after he just left, and he would have left when the show ended in 1986 because I've watched the series. He came in around about episode 625 or something like that. It was early on. He'd done about 58 episodes in season 8. There was 8 seasons of Prisoner Silver Age. So he even said so himself, and it wasn't missaid or anything like that. He knows what he was talking about. So again, that kind of like, there is a phenomenon called the Mandela effect residue, and that may be Mandela effect residue. That meaning that something that supposedly never happened, yet there's maybe just slight sort of proof or residue of its existence. But if you look back to records, it was never there. That's what they refer to that's what's referred to online as Mandela effect residue, if you come across that term online. That's my understanding of it anyway. I didn't name it the Mandela effect or Mandela effect residue. That's just terms that has been referred to online as a reference to the Mandela effect phenomena. But I've got a few Mandela effect residues, if you like, quite a few, but I've done separate videos on them anyway, particularly in my Quest series of videos that I do on my channel. If you look at them, type in Quest, then you'll get, it's all about stuff I find bizarre. This is just a sort of Sunday stroll kind of thing, just to check up on these fence posts and have a look at the original tree that I came across with that phenomena. And this path that I'm walking on was never there. I would have known about it. It was impossible to get down there. It's not like we've changed the ground or anything like that. I just think it's been there all the time. Yet in the dimension or reality I was in before, it wasn't. and it's fairly recent as well, because I would have certainly clocked it if it were there before. So it's not just it's not just been put there recently. And the fence posts further along don't make any sense, which I find really bizarre. The way the trees have grown into the fences, I find that really bizarre as well. Lots of things. But anyway, I'm going to just kind of round off the video. I'm going to just do the rest of my walk back to the car, and then I've got to get going. So at least you got to see some reasonable, nice scenery. You got to. I mentioned what I was trying to tell you. Hope you understood it. And, you know, I mean, I could go on about the subject because there's a lot of stuff I really do find interesting regarding strange things like that. I mean, the proof's there. The fence posts. Why would you build a fence like that? It just wouldn't happen. It just wouldn't. And there's nothing there to suggest that the ground is sunk, or the fence is sunk and the ground's raised, or the ground's been altered in any way to make it appear the way it does. It's not. I had to, if I was taking a shortcut to get back to Berwick Drive, there was a hole in the fence which is still there. I had to use that to get that way. If I was aware of this path, I would have used it. It was never there. And if the fence was as low as that, I would have clocked it. If trees were growing into fences, I would have clocked that as well. Much earlier on in my life. But yeah, apparently that's how it's always been. It certainly wasn't for me. It's only a fairly recent thing as far as I'm concerned. So, I'm going to pretty much round off the video. You know, I mean, that block, as I say, it just always brings back, it makes me think of Prisoner Cell Block H. Whitfield Scan Box makes me think of Prisoner Cell Block H. The music, when I hear the theme tune to Prisoner Cell Block H, always makes me think of the time that I stayed in Cheviot and seen Whitfield housing scheme. Why would I be thinking that if it was never shown? I must have heard it. I must have had something to, you know, to bring these memories and make me think and feel that way about it. And the guy even said that he got letters from people in the UK. People in the UK wouldn't have known about him until the mid-90s, because it wasn't shown until much later in the UK, according to all the research I've done. Yet I remember it, and there's no research saying it was ever shown in the UK as early as it did, and concurrent with Australia. But it would have had to have if, I mean, the guy that acted even said it. So, and I've put a comment in the video mentioning, asking, you know, not too much detail. I liked the interview. Obviously, I said it was great, and it was. I really enjoyed the interview, so I liked it and said it was brilliant. And as I said, you know, I heard that bit about. I'm really interested to know, because it kind of like goes again. It goes with my line of thinking. It goes in favour of what I remember, that it was shown, that Prisoner was shown concurrently with Australia when he said that. So it was good to hear that, actually, because it kind of goes against the records and all the research that I've come across that says it wasn't shown in concurrently with Australia, that it wasn't shown at the same time as Australia one, that it was shown much later, which everything seems to point to that it has. It's just the fence posts that I pointed out earlier to you. So yeah, this is where I first came across the fence posts anyway. I just thought I'd come back here on a Sunday afternoon to check up on it, just to see if anything else has changed and how about getting on, if there's anything. And just having another think about them and logging it in like I'm doing. But no, I never ever went to Whitfield High School. And I was, as I say, I moved from Cheviot Crescent and Finchley to Minas Hill, so all the schools I went to were Hillside Primary from 1980 obviously to 1987, and then from there just up the road a bit I went to Minas Hill High School from 1987 to 1992, of which I've done videos of. They were both demolished. Hillside was demolished 2018 I think. Minas Hill was done first, that was bulldozed down in 2017. I've got video footage of that. I've actually done a video article about that way earlier on in my channel. One of the earliest videos on my channel. You can look back to it if you want. And same for Hillside. They even got footage inside the school when it's, you know, a last look round kind of thing, footage. I had an opening day for Hillside as well. You know, like a last look round. And I got footage from that time as well. Although I didn't do YouTube back then, the footage was I made the footage suitable and tidied it up for YouTube. So that's in the article video that I done back in the very early videos of my channel. I also like to thank all my subscribers as well. I reached 1,000 subscribers on my channel just on the summer solstice. That was a milestone, and I reached 1,000 near enough 999 actually at the milestone at the Scottish English border just up Berwick when I was coming back from York. I made a video of that, so it was like 3 milestones on my channel when it did hit 1,000 just a day later, a day 2 later. It's quite a milestone for me, so I just keep doing as I'm doing, just keep putting stuff up, and I'll do it as long as I can. So once again, thank you all, and I just hope you keep enjoying the stuff that I put up, and that's what I do the channel for. I like to share the stuff that I find interesting, that I find fascinating with you, and you know, you make your will, make what you will of it. You know, you decide what you think of it, and that's it really. I'm not there to try and make you believe that the Mandela effect's real. It doesn't really matter, but I just like to share what I experience. I believe there's something going on because I've experienced it firsthand. Like time speeding up. Time never used to go as quick as it's done now. It's going as fast. I would say it's doubled. It's doubled. The weather's behaving all bizarre. I mean, the weather never used to behave the way it is, not just because of what we're told about climate change, but because from what I remember what it is like now is one thing. That's what I know, because that's what I remember. There's lots of theories about all sorts. You know, it's what you want to believe. But it's bizarre in many ways, but many other ways in what's being said. But again, I've done videos on it. So I'm back at this tree on the way back. That was the first one that I ever, as far as I could recall right now, that's the first one I came across that I logged in. It was regarding fences going right through the centre of them and merging with it and everything. I remember making reference to it, to the 1943 film. Well, it was USS Eldridge, the Philadelphia experiment. There was a film made in the late 70s or early 80s that was set back in World War II, and it was about this battleship that they tried to make invisible to radar, and the experiment went wrong because instead of making the ship just invisible to radar, they made the ship completely invisible. In fact, it was invisible. The ship had disappeared, completely disappeared, and they ended up hundreds of miles away somewhere else. And then I think it reappeared back again or something. But when it did come back, I'd have to watch the film again, but it's fascinating anyway. But when it did come back, or when it was reappeared, or when it was discovered, you know, that it had reappeared after completely disappearing, the crew that were on it were merged into the ship, physically and atomic. Oh gosh, atoms. Can't even get the word right. Atomically merged. Atomically, the atoms were actually merged, fused together. The bodies were fused and atomically merged in with the ship body. So the crew were merged into the walls. Half their legs were, half their body would be like merged, like it was joined to the ship physically, and they couldn't get out. It was just a mess. It was fascinating, scary, alarming. What the heck's going on, kind of thing. But that's what the film. If you watch it, it's the Philadelphia experiment, and that was what came to mind when I first came across this phenomena. I would have clocked that before many years ago. Like I said, when I was a lot younger, way back when I was a kid, I'm sure a lot of us probably did. We used to go out playing, climbing up trees, climbing up buildings. Like I say, I was fitter, a lot fitter, and a lot bigger from my age. A lot of people used to ask, "Is a heisty up and everything and all the rest?" I was always one. I could get up to the. I was able to reach up and get up to the buildings, and I loved it. I was a lot fitter. I was actually quite fit. Kind of envy how fit I was. I wish I was as fit as I was back then. But I was out and about, playing around, playing outside when I was a kid, and I would have clocked that. I would have clocked it. I would have noticed it. I would have remembered it. I would have remembered things like that if it were around back then. They were not like that before. That's why I'm making a song and dance about it now. I wouldn't be making a song and dance about it if something never happened. Obviously something's happened, you know, there's something strange happened. I wouldn't be making this video about it, I wouldn't be mentioning it if it was just normal. I've had it put to me a lot by lots. I've had it put to me a lot of times by many, but it's just normal and just misremembering. I've just got to accept that that's what they say, but I'm not accepting it as to be what it is. I will not change my mind. I'll listen to what they say. Yeah, sure, I understand that, but I won't change my view on it. I will not. I can accept what they're saying. Yeah, they see it that way. Like with all the trails in the sky. I've heard the term chemtrails, for example. I saw all sorts of bizarre trails in the sky. Planes never used to fly in squiggly lines, and then I've got tons of photographs I could show you. I've done that. I put up videos of it anyway. My views are different. I definitely do not remember seeing planes behave like that, spraying stuff. I mean, just saying that spraying chemicals out there, it's something that I don't know what's actually happening, but it's certainly not how I remember planes being like before. There's something bizarre going on, you know. I look up and the trails are staying there. It used to be the contrails would just evaporate and that would be it. But now these trails I've seen lately are lingering on, and then they change into clouds. I mean, that never used to happen. And as I say, there's lots of theories out there. There's chemtrail theory and all the rest of it. I listen to them all. I don't know what it is, what's happening, but I could go by what I remember. And when I was looking up and see planes, the trails would just evaporate, and that'd be it. You wouldn't think much. That's just how it was back then. They would just evaporate. But now they linger on. They're crisscrossing. They're going squiggly. They're changing. I've stood and watched it forming into a cloud, and that's not what used to happen. And then it's cloudy all of a sudden. Now that's just observations that I make. I don't know what's causing it, but there's lots of things online, suggestions and all the rest of it. I mean, I just call them trails because I get taught that they're contrails, condensation. Then I could come across theories that they're chemtrails, aluminium, nickel, boron, and other chemicals, and aluminium oxides, and all sorts of stuff to reflect light back into space, and other geoengineering things. I've heard and read about, well, I've heard some of it. I've read some things about it, and aware of it. I don't know what is actually doing it. I don't know what's going on up there. I haven't been up there to actually see it firsthand. But there's a lot of stuff online that refer to all these things that I find interesting anyway. But it sure wasn't like that before. The way that the weather and the temperature all changes and all the rest of it. Anyway, I'm going to have to round off the video. I'm nearly back. It's been a nice wee walk. So I've just got to get up that wee dike, climb up that, get over that obstacle and back to my car. So, hope you enjoyed the video anyway. Right, thanks for watching, and just see what else I put on my channel. Okay, bye for now. See you later.